So I'm doing everything backwards. So hopefully you'll be able to while I do this. So I've got a mic. This will go next slide. We're going to be wonderful. First of all, the library guy. Do you stand up?
I am much too happy to be a stand-up.
I'm just saying. All right. So thank you all for being here, and I'll get back to where I'm supposed to be. I'm Dr. LaMonta Richmond, and I'm going to talk about the thing I know best, which is me. The many layers of me, a journey through Afrofuturism, advocacy, engineering, and more. And it's a personal reflection on my roles and identities, because when Mel said, talk about layers, I'm like, well, you know, people see me in a space, and they think that that space is the definition of who I am. And I think that that applies to everyone. And I, give myself as an example of just the complexity of every human that you meet anywhere that you go. So, in embracing my many roles, I'm going to look at my identities as an Afrofuturist, a process engineer, policy advocate, community strategist, artist, daughter, sister, mother, and best of all, grandmother. I am because we are, and because we are, therefore I am. That's Ubuntu theory. I didn't make that up. And the pictures at the bottom are just me and some of those roles. They look a lot bigger on screen. So Afrofuturism. Everybody here knows what Afrofuturism is, right?
Yeah.
No? Okay, so let me tell you. All right, in my humble opinion, it is a way forward for all of us. Some call it a genre, some call it a framework, and for me, it is a way of life, but say a movement. And I'm committed to whatever my role is in bringing us together to co-create a future where our descendants will be proud and grateful for. And I think that's really important. A lot of times people are so busy looking back that they forget to think that, tomorrow's going to come whether we're here or not. Afrofuturism simply is a way of looking at the future through a lens in the interest of people of African descent, whether in the diaspora or on the continent. And, being realistic, there's Afro-pessimism, there's Afro-optimism. For me, I take it a little bit forward when I say it's movement, because I feel like when you think forward and you can, if you see a train coming, you can stand on the tracks or you can get off the tracks, right? We get to choose whether or not to do something about it. We don't have to stand there and get hit by the train if you know it's coming, right? So, process engineer. And so all of this comes together. A lot of times, people see me out doing stuff and they don't realize I have like a real job. I've been working at UC San Diego for the last, it'll be 20 years in June. Yes, I know. So a process engineer designs, improves, and manages manufacturing processes to increase efficiency, quality, and safety. That's like the end. But if you think about it, if you take that same lens and you apply it to life, it's really just about, thinking about how we do things, what are we trying to achieve, and what's like a healthy way to get there, right? So this role allows you to problem solve, optimize systems, and most importantly to me, innovate. I love innovation. Policy advocacy. There's some people who see me in this role. I push for changes that align with your values. I hope those of you who have them, and definitely my values of justice, equity, and access. A few of the organizations that I do this with, the Black Speculative Arts Movement, which is a global network of Afrofuturists. We recently met in Amsterdam, and we haven't decided where we're going to meet this year, but we get together and we support each other's individual work as well as share theory and write together and help highlight and showcase art. We recently did a show at Carnegie Hall on Afrofuturism with like a Latin influence where we had like people from the Brazilian and Colombian chapter. Alliance San Diego, have any of you heard of Alliance San Diego? We try to fight that good fight. So currently I'm vice president of the board, and at some point when we have our next meeting, I think next Monday, I'll be president of the board. And with Alliance, we look at create a more inclusive democracy, and we do voter education and outreach, but we also do a lot for to support immigrants and immigrants' rights. And we try to be on the right side of change. When the floods happened last year, the great floods where cars were floating down alongside Imperial, we joined with other community-based organizations to help respond and make sure that the people who were impacted, because unfortunately, it's a coincidence that the areas that experienced the most impact were the people who were least equipped from an economic standpoint to respond in a way that was going to be resilient. Green Ears, My Love Child, is my nonprofit. Griot is like a combination of Griot. Anybody know what Griot is? All right, African storyteller. Yeah, I see some hands. And everybody knows what an engineer is, right? Like we figure out how to make things work. And so you put that together, and I look at engineering the future through storytelling. Because so much of what we do or don't do, or think or don't think, all of it is based on the stories that we tell ourselves. Black Women's Resilient Project, Guaranteed Basic Income Project, UN International Civil. So this is just some stuff I do. I don't want to get belabored on this slide. It's a lot, but it's not all of it, right? So, community strategy. So you're starting to see a theme where it kind of fits together, but it's a different layer. Building bridges and empowering people. I create space where people can come together and, we want individuals to thrive. So I produce Black Comic Cons, I do Afrofuturism Dream Tanks based on different themes where I encourage people to participate and help co-create visions of the future with a focus on reverse engineering the process of getting from where we are to where we want to be. Most of the work I do is about getting people into spaces where they can suspend disbelief. Because if you believe something won't work, how likely is it to work? And so, let's play. And then while we play with ideas and then see what happens, right? Motherhood, the foundation of my strength and love. So I was a teenage mom. I dropped out of high school. I had no idea what I was doing. When I got my first apartment, I was still 16. And it occurred to me in the moment, after I had moved in and everybody had, everybody helped me move and everybody went home and all the build up was over. Wow, I got a whole nother life that I'm responsible for, and I haven't had a job yet, and I don't have a high school diploma, and I don't know what I'm doing. And it was in that moment that I decided to do some different things. In this picture, you see me, my daughter, my grandmother, who was a huge influence in my life. My grandmother was the one person who always told me that I could really do anything I wanted to do if I was willing to do it. My mother and my little brother. Now pictured here is my son and my grandson. Speaking of my grandson, are you guys ready? So this is my favorite job. So one day, my son told me I was going to be a grandmother. I was like, what? And then another day, he called me. He said, we're at the hospital. He's here. And I was like, we gotta go see the new grandchild, right? And I showed up, and I laid eyes on him, and the universe shifted. A friend of mine told me that in Filipino culture they call it the leap of blood. But all of a sudden, there was this clarity that, it's not about me, it's not even about my kids, and, to a certain extent, it's not even about their kids, it's about the legacy that we create as individuals. And so, when I ran for school board, it was a love letter to my grandson, because I knew one day he would be a student in the San Diego Unified School District. If there was anything I could do to make his experience better, I was going to do it. And I'm still committed to that. It turned out I didn't win the election, but that was probably the best thing that could have happened, because I've done a lot of cool stuff since then. And then, I've probably been talking too long. Oh, I'm good? All right. So then, once, my grandson came along, since he was born in March of 2018. I did the very first Afrofuturism Dream Tank in June of 2018. Then I did the first Afrofuturism Lounge in July of 2018. And both of those things were just like, oh, this would be something fun to do, and I've been doing them every year ever since. I do dream tanks in a variety of capacities and spaces. I've gone as like micro as like specifically the futurity of Black women, to more macro, like what do we see the world like 50 years from now or 100 years from now? I've done work with the United Nations, for the Commission on the Status of Women, for the Youth Summit, for the Indigenous Peoples Forum, and more recently for the Permanent Forum on People of African Descent, as well as the Summit of the Future. And all of it is really, everything I do is really about getting people to understand that as we go forward, and I'm not a Luddite, I love technology, but we have to make sure that we maintain our humanity and that we remember all of the things that made us able to connect with, support, love, and work together with each other. And every time I start to feel a little frustrated or discouraged, anybody feel frustrated or discouraged in the last few months? I mean, I look at my grandson and I say, when I'm not here, God willing, he will be. And, what is it that I can do? Like, what's one little thing I could do that might help? And so I try to do little things. And sometimes I think it's a little thing, and it's not so little. So I want to give you guys time for questions in case you have any, because I kind of talked about a lot of stuff. I wanted to close out with like, what's next, in case anybody's wondering, because if you know me and if you are familiar with my work, you know that I don't always tell people what I'm going to do. I have friends that are here today who are like, why didn't you tell us you were going to be here? I'm in several group chats, and they're like, why didn't you just talk in that group chat? I was doing, last night I was, I was at Stardust, and the night before that I was at the San Diego History Center, and then, so. But it's not because I don't love y'all. So this is a preview of some things that are coming up. My QR code here, if you want to connect with me, that goes to my Popl. I don't remember what that QR code goes to. Some of the logos, the Sunflower Girl is, I commissioned it for a young artist. Anybody familiar with the work of Aubrey Rose? You should. She's amazing. I met her at the New School of Architecture and Design when I did the second annual Afrofuturism when I was there. Her and her sister have it's called Broken Chalice Studios. But we worked on that image for an event, and I just love the image so much that it's taken on a life of its own. People cosplay as that image. I've had people send me like fan art of their rendering or version of the image, so it's not going anywhere. March 7th, we'll be doing an Afrofuturism happy hour at Graffiti Gardens. Anybody heard of Graffiti Gardens? Anybody heard of Max Moses? All right, so yes, so if you haven't heard of Max Moses, his art is incredible. He's one of those people that he was in San Diego. He's still in San Diego. And everyone that I know who knew him, they're like, you gotta meet Max Moses. He's an Afrofuturist, and his art is, and now I have his art all over my house. But we're doing a happy hour at his studio. There's gonna be a book signing, some wine, some arts. And, I'm gonna talk about some other stuff. On the 16th of March, I'm doing a more academic lecture on Afrofuturism dream tanks and the theory behind them, the structure, because don't tell anybody this, but everything I do is grounded in theory. I just don't put the theory up front because I don't want it to get in the way of the outcomes. Make sense? All right. But that's when you get the peek behind the curtain. And then on July 4th, I've been invited to be the STEM guest of honor. for Baycon, which is a speculative fiction and science fiction